It's T Watts and TR on the YouTube and podcast homes for BamaOnline.com. Travis Reier, senior analyst for BOL, back with you alongside BOL site publisher Tim Watts. It is a Tuesday on October the 17th, 2023. It's Tennessee week. And we've got Alabama, Tennessee to talk about. We got the T Watts and TR Bowl coming up in New Orleans on Thursday with Tim Saints hosting my Jags. We'll have the roundtable mailbag for you. And of course, Tim, it is pumpkin spice season, which begs the question, how much pumpkin related type of food, drink have you consumed so far in the month of October?
I don't think I've ever willingly did anything with pumpkin. Like I'm still debating whether it's a fruit or vegetable. I know people argue it. They think they know the answer. I've just never had a good experience with it. When I was a kid, they're like, make a, real pumpkin, stick your hands in, get your own guts out. That kind of parent. I just never had a good experience with a pumpkin. I think I've
I'm
had
not,
pumpkin pie. I mean, you add sugar on it, I'll eat it.
you know, if you just present it to me as spice, instead of pumpkin, I'll probably eat a lot more of it. The wife
Yeah.
just this last week, she made these pumpkin muffins, which were outstanding, but they were outstanding after I kind of convinced myself that they're basically like spice bread or spice muffins.
Spice
They're
Girls.
I can't right. I can't get past the pumpkin, I guess. And speaking of pumpkins,
That's just an odd vegetable fruit. I mean,
it
it's an
is. And you're
odd,
right. It's
it's
one
a,
of those things I don't need to ever see the inside of a pumpkin because then
oh
the
man.
chances of
My
eating it,
mom's like, dig it out yourself. Like, you
larva.
want to make a pumpkin? This wasn't my idea. Dig it out yourself. And you go in there and
Yeah, I feel like I'm doing, it's not done, put it that way. When I look in a pumpkin to me, it's just
I
not.
like the smell. The smell's all right.
Yeah,
My wife will
yeah.
kick off the candle. I mean, I don't like to roll out of the bed in the morning and be busted up, with the whole pumpkin aroma in the living room. But it does happen around here.
Well, speaking of pumpkins and the color orange, Tim, it's Tennessee week at BamaOnline.com, where an annual subscription for new subscribers is half off right now. So if you haven't already, you want to take great advantage of that deal. The third Saturday in October, Tim, I have to check myself sometimes because some years it's actually like the fourth.
It is. It's a
Regardless, you got a roller coaster kind of season for Alabama that it is in the midst of right now, ready to host Tennessee. And from where I sit, really, with another home game against LSU to come following the bye week, the defining stretch of the 2023 season is right now, right here for this Alabama team.
Yeah, I mean, this whole thing's bananas. I mean, everything Bama's been through, the whole college world's going through it. I mean, there's been a lot of excitement. And to be halfway through the season, basically, that's just, again, you wait all year and this thing just runs right by you, and it doesn't seem like it. But yeah, Tennessee's huge. We knew Tennessee, LSU would be the big ones. Still go to Kentucky. So Tennessee's playing well. You saw earlier in the year when they lost to Florida, a lot of people wrote them off. And Florida's a hot and cold team. I think Billy's got them 5-2 now, right? So
Five and two.
yeah. I mean, at some point we were predicting he might not win another game. There's a lot of they thought Florida's going to go 3-9 or something to close out the year, but not as bad a loss as it was then. But then again, Tennessee's only been on the road this whole year for that one game, I believe. So
Yeah.
not really road tested, and they're going to go find out what they're made of in Tuscaloosa. And I'm pretty excited about the game. I like this game. I've always liked this game. I never felt it wasn't a rivalry game. I never felt it wasn't important. I don't care if it's 15, 16 wins, 20 wins in a row. I think it's important every year to win it. And I think a lot of Alabama fans that said it's not really a rivalry anymore. Last year, I think they had a renewed, you don't know what you got till it's gone.
Yeah, it's a rivalry too that could be in jeopardy, with Texas and Oklahoma coming into the
Crazy.
league, and depending on the scheduling format, it could be an either or situation when you look at Alabama, Tennessee, Alabama, Auburn. Do you have a preference of those two? You can only save one. Which one are you keeping? Alabama, Tennessee, Alabama, Auburn.
I mean, I'd have to go Auburn because
Yeah.
it's in state, and everybody, a lot of in-state people here running around that all year. I don't really feel like Tennessee's too far out of state. I mean, there's been a lot of crossover with I mean, Jeremy Pruitt was just a coach there a few years ago. They signed Alabama players. Alabama's had some great Tennessee players. So it's not like they're, from the West Coast, but obviously in state, Alabama, Auburn, it just, there's something a little special there. I mean, there's like 7 years a row, family member attacked another family member in the news. So, I mean, when you're jumping on your son over the outcome of a game because his team won and yours didn't, hey, that's a rivalry.
Yeah, I think that nationally, Alabama Auburn just hits different, right?
Yeah.
It's more impactful from a national perspective. Tennessee, Alabama, more regional, I think. And you're right. I think the people in North Alabama, Tennessee's the game for
Yeah.
sure. Everywhere else, it seems like it's Alabama, Auburn of those
A lot of
two.
a lot of it's just where you live. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
my friends in Georgia think that Georgia fans are by far the worst. But they're in there every day. They go into every convenience store and there's Kirby Smart, holding up whatever he's promoting in that
Coca-Cola can.
store.
Yeah.
In Tennessee, they think Alabama, my friends in Tennessee think last year they thought Tennessee fans were the worst. So I just think it's who you're with. That's why I think Alabama and Auburn's perfect because you think everybody's the worst because you're in the state and you see it year round. But I agree with you, though. Nationally, I've had people surprised how heated the Alabama Tennessee game was when they moved here or worked for us or ran into us. They didn't really understand it was really not. It is a heated rivalry.
Alabama's rivalry's got some pretty good nicknames, I guess. Iron Bowl,
Yeah,
third Saturday in October.
not
Oh, that
bad.
adds to the mystique too. It's all
Yeah,
about marketing.
they didn't get like the wood cup, the wood shallot. You know what I mean? We get the
Yeah,
Midwest
battle
is
for the box of nails.
yeah, the
Mhm.
Midwest will be stretching some out there, won't they? They'll be
Yeah, they will.
they have them some nicknames.
You kind of touched on this with this Tennessee team too. Has only been outside of the state of Tennessee for one game this season. Played Virginia and Nashville. That's a home game, as we
Right.
know. Um, and didn't look very good in the process. Got off to a pretty good start in that game against Florida, but from that point forward, after a 7-0 lead, it was all Gators. What kind of game are you anticipating this week? Because last year, I mean, we had 52-49 in
Yeah,
Knoxville. And
I
when I
can't
look at these
imagine.
two teams right now, I don't know if they get to half of that point total on Saturday.
I don't see it. I mean, we're talking two completely different level of quarterbacks, and that's no offense to anybody. I mean, you go from Hooker, who's one of the hottest quarterbacks in the country, and Bryce Young was the number one draft pick. So I mean, those guys were exceptional. Also, the skill players. Tennessee had great wide receivers and really good guys around them. Alabama still has pretty much that same core, but they don't have Jahmyr Gibbs. So I mean, I'm looking at that. Oh, I wonder if we don't get us an old school Alabama Tennessee game. Are we going to get us a 2017? Are we going to get us a 17-14 type game? Because it would be like polar opposite of last year. And but I can see it. I mean, Tennessee played good defense this week. I was shocked when I looked at the Tennessee box score. It said they only had 2 sacks, and I think Max Johnson and myself would like to disagree. They hit that kid. And again, we talk about this every week. I'm going to say it, the toughness of the quarterbacks in this league. Max Johnson took a lot of hits last week. Just, Tennessee puts a lot of pressure on the ball. And something else I didn't notice, even though I watched it, there were like 20 penalties in that game between the both. Just a complete nasty, weird game, tough game. And but yeah, Tennessee runs the ball well. Alabama defends the run really well. Milton's not consistent as a passer so far. Alabama's got a decent secondary. But then again, Tennessee's pretty good in the secondary themselves. They're not bad. So you got Milrow. Obviously, good coaching on both sides, I think. So spread. What'd you think about the spread?
I think we talked about that just a little bit ago with the uncertainty about Tennessee on the road. There's not a big enough sample size
Yeah,
for
I
this
agree.
team away from Knoxville to feel like, based on what you saw against
Mhm.
Florida,
Yeah.
probably makes more sense. Now, initially, there was a little sticker shock when I saw the number. I was like,
Mhm.
whoa.
See,
And
I
then
thought
as you
six and
kind
a
of think
half.
about it, yeah, I would
Yeah,
have
I thought
thought
six
somewhere
and a
between
half.
5 and 7. Sure.
Yeah.
But then when again you think about the performance against
Yeah.
Florida and this offense isn't last year's offense. And I think a lot of people just figure if it's going to be on Tennessee to pretty much have to run the football, which they've done exceptionally well, and have the potential to do even this week. That's where that line is going to kind of come from. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. I was guessing 6.5 on the line, so it's a little bit high. I guess it could change, but again, there is a lot of uncertainty. I mean, you don't know what you're going to get. I mean, you get the first half of Bama or the second half of Bama. I'm in the minority probably with this Arkansas game. I think Arkansas is going to sound crazy, 5-game losing streak. I don't think they're a bad football team. I think they're competitive. They were competitive in every single loss they've had. They played a pretty tough schedule. KJ Jefferson's that's a friggin', NFL blocking tight end back there running around. I mean, I did think once Alabama got that early start, it was going to walk away. I think Alabama thought that because after halftime they looked a little bit different. So I think Alabama's still a pretty good football team. I think Tennessee's a good football team, and I think that crowd's going to be absolutely bananas. I'll be disappointed if that crowd's not absolutely bananas after last year. And you see Tennessee's used to a huge home field advantage. I think Tennessee has maybe one of the best in the country. I mean, I would say in the discussion, the best home field. I think they're right there at the top from what I see, especially when you see everything that's happening for a big game. And I only watch Tennessee's big games, so I don't know how they are in just normal games. But I know in their big games, they're a handful, and I expect Alabama to try to replicate that from last year.
Yeah, it certainly is a tough place to play up there when morale is even decent. If the morale of that
Mhm.
fan base and that team is even decent, it's going to be tough, at least early in games until you take them out. And, that was the case last year. And I think that goes into maybe some of this line this year, too, was that what Tennessee was up 21 nothing or big in the game last year and still had to hang on, really had
Yeah,
to survive a missed field goal attempt, an end of
yeah,
game scenario for Alabama offensively that wasn't especially good.
yeah,
And then you get a deflected field goal off of what, Byron Young, that
yeah.
goes through. So that may have something to do with it a
That
year
was the
later.
crazy. I don't know if it was the craziest, but it certainly was one of the craziest games I've ever seen.
Yeah.
We need to actually think about the craziest games we've ever seen. It's hard to judge that game if you were involved in it, like if you were covering it
Hmm.
or you're emotionally invested. I'd love to. We need to ask somebody what they thought who didn't have a dog in the fight, because that had to be bananas just to be sitting there as some Cal Berkeley fan watching that game with your girlfriend.
Yeah.
You had to
CBS
be
loved
just
it. Yeah, I'm
yeah.
sure CBS loved it.
Oh,
The
yeah,
numbers that game
absolutely.
did on that network. But I wanted to ask you too about this Alabama team in general. Thinking about 7 games into the season, what are some areas of this team? A couple areas of this team that you look at and say, yeah, that area is about where I thought it would be. It's played up to sort of expectations or maybe not exceeded expectations, but you're not surprised by the level of performance from an area or two of this Alabama team at this point.
Yeah, where I'm not surprised is the secondary. I expected them to come in. I think they had, obviously got Malachi coming back, who I'm a fan of, two good corners coming back, and Caleb Downs coming in, plus a couple portal transfers. I expected that to be a solid group and to be able to hold their back end up much better. Um, I'm not surprised by the linebacker play. I mean, everybody I talked to about Trez Marshall, everybody going back to high school, said if he's healthy, he's a good football player. And we've seen that so far. He's mixing in with Lawson, the outside guys getting that edge pressure. Certainly not surprised by Dallas. I don't think Dallas, he got 7 sacks, probably would have guessed he had double digits by now, honestly, but he's seen a lot of that pressure. Braswell helping that, a lot of that attention. Braswell helping out on the other side. So the defense has been pretty consistent of what I thought they would be, with the exception of the defensive line, the interior, who's did a better job than maybe I expected.
Yeah, I think offensively, you kind of expected some up and downs at the with the
Yeah.
quarterback situation. So that isn't really a surprise. We'll get into some maybe areas of quarterback play coming up that have either exceeded or gone below what our expectations were. I think you expected the running backs to be really good. I don't know if statistically that's shown up as much so far. I don't know if you put as much on those guys as you do some other areas of that offense when
Yeah.
you look at reasons why maybe statistically they haven't been as productive. Now, they're coming off a really strong performance against Arkansas. Those 4 backs combined to have rushed for over 200 yards against the Razorbacks. So that was very, very good to see. But in terms of their usage, as receivers and in some other ways, maybe not as much, but just the quality of play from that position. has been about what you'd expect. And I think Will Reichard kicking the football.
Yeah,
And you talk about a guy that
yeah,
we expected to be critical to this team's chances of winning on a weekly basis. That's absolutely been the case for Will.
yeah. So Alabama have they ever had they've never had under Saban a field goal kicker in the NFL, right?
Not one that's really stuck. No,
I mean, I got to
no.
think Will's that guy, right? I mean,
He could be. I mean, those jobs are precious, man. There's only 32 of them. And
I
if you
know,
you
and I don't
watch
know
it, you
where.
watch a ton of NFL football. You
Oh
watch
yeah,
even more than I do. And on the freak level, some of these guys are beyond it because
I don't know
they
where
make
half of them.
60-yard field goals like they're 30,
As
you
much
know?
college football as we watch, I don't know where half the NFL kickers come from. It's like they import them from a league I'm not familiar with because I'm like, who's that guy? And even when they're good, I have to look them up and say, I don't even remember him.
All
So
the
yeah,
punters these days are coming from Australia.
yeah.
So
What's
we're
the
trying to
hey,
hang on to the place kicking
hey,
jobs, Tim, at this point.
hey, I was watching like I've seen a few documentaries on rugby, and I think I get it now. They kick I mean, it's soccer too.
Oh yeah.
There's some strong legs. Those guys grow up kicking the crap out of that ball.
And punting used to be all about technique. You had to drop it a certain way. These cats, man, they can drop it sideways, nose down,
That
point it
goes in.
up, and it's
That
still
goes in
going
that.
65 yards. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, that goes into that rugby, running left and right. They're all doing that stuff. Yeah, I mean, growing up, I never saw anybody run left or right that didn't get in trouble,
Yeah.
or who wasn't in trouble was somebody come flying up. Somebody flying up the middle.
Yeah. So what about this team in terms of areas where you're surprised, at least right now, understanding there's still some season to go here and things can change and for the better or for the worse for that matter, that have either exceeded your expectations or maybe fallen a little bit under those to this point?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's Tim Keenan, right? I think we start there. I'm, doing a really good job, and he's paid his dues. I mean, it's been a few years we didn't hear his name. A lot of people had wrote him off. It's not even ever going to really be a factor. But he certainly looked the part. And I also go back to your special teams of Burnip, the punter. I mean, this dude. I mean, I was hoping he would get better. There usually is the next year get better improvement there. We've seen Will Riker do it too, but man, he's really good. I mean, their special teams are really helping this team out as far as kicking the ball. Kool-Aid still needs to catch that ball, but otherwise, that special teams did a good job.
Yeah, I think for sure you said it. Hope. Use the word hope with Burnip. I think that's what you were thinking. We were all thinking with Keenan too, and that defensive line in
Yeah,
general. You were hoping Keenan and some of those other guys would take another step. Into the credit of Freddie Roach, they have done that. I don't think there's any doubt. I think Jaheim Otis has taken another step, which they needed those guys to do,
yeah.
and they're going to
Justin,
be
Justin coming back
Justin
healthy.
Aboybe coming
Had to
back from
hope
the
he
injury.
came back healthy.
You
Yep,
hoped
hope
as
he
much for
came back.
him that he had
Yeah,
a good year after what he had
sure.
been through. But they really needed that area to step forward. And when you kind of put them together with Dallas Turner and Chris Braswell, that is playing to the Alabama standard that you expect from fronts under Nick Saban. I would also kind of look at offensively, maybe good and bad as it relates to the passing game is I didn't have Jalen Milrow averaging 10 and a half or so per
Yeah,
attempt, 10 and a half yards per attempt. I think last year, I think Bryce was around 8.5. Now he threw it more. They threw it more. So that's going to
yeah.
impact that number. But for the run game not to be as consistently dominant as it hasn't been this season and to still throw for those type of yards when Alabama does throw it. I know people look at his percentage, his completion percentage. I think he's around 61, 62%. That's actually pretty high when you consider the
He's
kind of throws that he's completing for the most part. I mean, he's not dinking and dunking anybody.
No, he's dropping bombs out there, and also when he gets, I still think there's a learning curve. I know that some people, and I've discussed this, they think that I consider him basically a rookie, having played 6 games. He might as well be. He's not a true freshman, but in a lot of ways, he is a freshman. He's got a new offensive coordinator. That there's things that go into that. He's getting the first team snaps. He's a starting quarterback. So in that sense, he is a rookie in that regard. And I'm not saying um, that he doesn't have room for improvement. But what I am saying is that's when the improvement usually comes when you get him, down the road facing these teams. He's faced some really good teams already. And I get he's a work in progress. I've never seen, has there ever been a bit more polarized player at Alabama? just like people love him, and then people want him, don't love him. And I've never seen such a heated debate about Jalen. And I think it's because, you can love him in the first half and not love him in the second half. So I think that's kind of where Jalen sits. But I think overall, I think he's a good football player for Alabama right now. I don't think they have another option better than him. So it's like I tell everybody, I don't know if you like him or not, but I think this is your guy. So you might as well get behind him and support him, because I don't see another quarterback change.
No, and I think he's also just in a tough spot when you look at the line, the run of quarterbacks they've had.
Oh, there's a
Would
lot. Yeah,
any quarterback in this situation be in a better spot in terms of public perception than Jalen is? Now, Jalen brings some of it on himself because there are these bouts of inconsistency that
sure.
still show up. But when the game was on the line against Arkansas, for whatever reasons, that happened before it, and as much as you may not advise the throw he made to Omari Nyblack on 2nd and 13 in the middle of the field, he got it home. He converted a 3rd and 3 with his legs. They were able to
Yeah.
take the air out of the ball over the final 5 or 6 minutes. So,
I mean, they need that game out 1st and 10 at their 30-yard line. So, I mean, they had put a drive together when they had to have one, which is what a winning football team has to do. And also the defense stood up after giving up 2 back-to-back touchdown drives. They stood up to get the ball back, which is also what a championship team's got to do to win defensively. So they had back-to-back, excellent to close that game out drives, offensively and defensively. So, but yeah, with Jalen, I mean, he didn't just follow good quarterbacks. Let's be real. He followed a guy that
all
won a
time.
Heisman, whose last game in New Orleans, we were there, Kansas State, was amazing. He followed Mac Jones, who to me maybe be the best offensive Alabama team ever. That team was one of the funnest, that 2020 national championship team that went undefeated. Before that, he's got Tua, who was magic, a guy that everybody, as famous as anybody. He's a guy who'd only started, came in the second half of national championship game and became world famous. So there was no doubt there was a step off. There was a step back there. And, but again, I mean, I think he's a work in progress. We keep discussing that. And I just want to see him progress in the intermediate routes, the short routes, and get those things down. Give these guys, they got some jackrabbits, give them a chance to catch and run and see what some of those guys can do.
Yeah, it's a situation for him that's very important. He needs to continue to grow,
Yeah.
because I don't think even at this point there's any guarantees in terms of his presence as the starter beyond the season if that doesn't happen. If he does
Yeah.
do those things, he's going to make it very hard for the Dylan Lonergans and the Julian
Sure.
Sayans and guys to jump in there and maybe go Tua and supplant him even as
Yeah.
a returning starter. But there's still very much the need for growth.
I
But
just
I mean,
think the one
go
thing
ahead.
with this Bama team, sorry to interrupt, is like when things go bad, they go bad. Like the second
Mhm.
half, you've got drops. I mean, even in the first half, Corey had a drop.
Not
Benson
just in
had.
one area either.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They can have those drops. And then you got passes that are, should be a little easier tosses for those guys that they can't catch. So when it went bad, it kind of just got sideways, and they never really recovered from that. And that's football. That's football. I mean, it's, they say the NBA basketball is a game of runs, and it's true, but nothing changes in momentum in any sport, in my opinion, like football.
After the
Nothing
face
changes.
mask penalty on Key in the third quarter, and Arkansas goes down and cashes in after another defensive penalty on Alabama, it was still a 24-13 game, but you said it felt closer at 24-13. You felt
Yeah.
like, okay, you've given a team with a puncher in KJ Jefferson now a puncher's chance
Yeah,
to try to
with
win
nothing
this
to
game.
lose, with
Right.
0.0 to lose, and also, I felt like the face mask, and I'm not blaming Key for the whole drive. They had chances to stop them, and I had people saying that touchdowns on Key. They had still had to go 65, 70 more yards.
Yep.
So obviously it didn't help. It was kind of pointless to do that at that point. And then the offense, I felt like that second drive, I think it was, they were marching down the field. Run was really smooth. That third and third play with Jalen just was dead. There
Yeah.
was nothing. He couldn't run. They had people out there that kind of rolled him to the right side, or he rolled to the right side, cut his field in half, and then he ended up cutting in a quarter. That was just a dead play. But up until that point, I still just personally wanted to see them run on 3rd and 3,
Run
get the
twice if
first,
they had to.
or if you don't get the first, I want to see what's happening there. 4th and 1, I want to see a decision, even if it's a field goal. At least want them to think about it. So I think that game had flows, and a couple of times they just lost the flow. The 3rd and 3 on offense and the key face mask kind of changed that, because I don't really remember doing much after that 3rd and 3 play until the last drive.
3 straight 3-and-outs.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So that momentum that went away, couldn't establish the run after that either.
Yeah, the 3rd and 3, I thought they're going to run the ball twice here and get this
That's
first
exactly
down.
what I thought. Now, I will say
If they don't get it on 3rd and 3, they'll get it on 4th and 1 or whatever.
I do think Arkansas staff did a good job of countering Bama. You saw them hitting some 3rd and 7 runs all of a sudden that were successful, which they didn't do in the first half. So they saw some things they liked. They made adjustments. Defense, you ran the ball down the field on the second drive and said no more. Figure that running game out. So I do think Arkansas you get some of the credit. They don't have the guys most of the SEC does for some reason.
We've seen teams do that this year against this Alabama defense, even if it's 3rd and 6, run the ball against especially Alabama's pass rush package, because the numbers favor you more that way, and now you don't have to worry about protecting against Dallas Turner, Chris Braswell, and some of those other guys. And I think Tennessee this week, Tim, if it's 2nd and 8, just because you slow down Tennessee on first down with the run this week, I don't think you can go full pass rush mode on 2nd and 3rd and long. I think Tennessee's going to stay with it too.
Yeah, I feel like that 3rd and 7, that down and distance, when you drop those backs back there, put in your nickel or whatever you do, I think that's a USC kind of thing. I see that with Sark. I saw it with Lane. I think other teams. I think I remember a story. Wasn't there a story about being in practice and Lane calling runs on 3rd and 7 and they wanted to work on their pass defense?
It wouldn't surprise me, because
I think I remember. I don't know if a coach told me that or what, but they were like, well, stop dropping, stop dropping 7. I'll stop running. So I think that's kind of a California thing. I know I've seen Sark do it. I know I've seen Lane Kiffin do it. And I'm sure others. I mean, I just saw Arkansas do it. But I think you're right. You get those 7, you got 7 guys back and 4 guys forward. You got a chance to get those 7 yards if you get by that first wave.
Tennessee makes it tough because of the pace that they work at offensively, which is something Alabama hasn't really seen much of this week. I'm talking about turbo pace, hurry up type of offense.
Don't you think that pace is easier to do at home than on the road? Like, don't you think it makes it a little bit difficult?
I think communicating and things like that. I know so much of it is hand signals these days, but sure, I would think the communication can be difficult, more so on the road. But yeah, I think if you're Alabama, though, it's tough because you have to start a possession, you have to commit to a personnel grouping. And are you going nickel the whole possession? Because you just don't get the opportunity to substitute a lot of times like you would against really every other offense Alabama has seen this season.
Yeah, and that's why it's going to be important that defensive line holds its own. You want to get them uncomfortable. You don't want to give them 2nd and 3rd. There's a lot of options at 2nd and 3. So yeah, that front, that middle, especially are going to have to hold their own. And again, I think it's simply going to come down to the lines here. I mean, can Alabama protect Jalen Milroe? Because if they can, he's going to have some success on that back end. We've seen that in every game. And if they can establish the run, I think it's going to, obviously going to be tough sledding. And I think all this saying if is what leads us to believe we're getting us a 16-13 yard burger, which is going to be
19-14 from 2015.
You say that, but I'm telling you, it'll be 40. It'll be 48.
I think 1st to 24. I know, but I think 1st to 24 is going to win this game Saturday.
Yeah, that's fair. That's absolutely fair.
And we talk about the challenges for the Alabama defense, specifically if you play nickel, which we expect Alabama to play. Do you play it with 3 defensive linemen and Dallas Turner? Do you play it with 2 and Braswell on the edge opposite? These are the kind of conflicts that you can get put into by this Tennessee offense and leave you a little shorthanded in some areas.
They are fortunate that they've seen the defense be successful against them. So you got that. The further you get into these games, and that goes for everybody, you've got tape now to kind of go off and see what works.
Yep.
At the same time, Josh Heupel has a tape to see what didn't work. That's why I love sports. That's why I love every sport, basically. besides golf, because there's no chess in golf. There's no
Yeah,
chess.
there is chess in golf,
There's not
man.
chess.
You've
Give me
got to
some out
set up
there.
every shot with the shot you're hitting right now.
You got a guy
How is that
telling
not
you.
chess?
You got a guy
You got
telling
to
you
set
what
up
to. You
moves in
got a guy
chess.
telling you what to do. Tim,
Who's telling you?
get the 5-iron, hit it in the hole.
Yeah. Yeah, the caddy that you're giving like
Okay, so
$12
let's
after the
ask a
round.
serious question.
All right.
Are you
All
the
right.
golfer and I'm the caddy, or am I the golfer and you're the caddy in another
Well, I
world?
mean, if we're just talking golf, you're the caddy. I mean,
What are
you're
the
not
odds
hitting
we
any of
wouldn't?
those
I mean, do
shots.
you want me with all those sticks
I'm
to
not
hit you
good at
with?
golf, but I can only
But do you
imagine
want
you
me
trying
to
to hit
have
a shot.
all those weapons to hit you with? Let's think this through.
Well,
If
there's
I'm the
some
golfer,
things.
I've got 1. You've got 10.
Yeah, but there's some things I can conceal, that maybe you're not as aware of that are effective and not as bulky and cumbersome as a
All I
golf
know is
club.
Charlie Potter's the golfer. We're both his caddy. That's what I
Well,
think we can agree.
if you ask him, there's no doubt about that with Charlie, no doubt. Hey, so we talk about things that are about what we expected with this team, maybe not what we expected with this team. Where does the offensive line play rank on that sort of scale? Because I got to think it's got to be more along the lines of what we didn't expect.
No, I didn't. I mean, we knew Latham would be good, right? The rest, I mean, it's kind of been trying to figure out who's at guard and center. I expected Seth to be a little bit better. I think he's been okay the last few games, but a rough early start. I'm not as down on Proctor as others. I got a couple former NFL guys that watch the film and give me feedback and kind of help me with that left tackle. They think he's going to be fine. Obviously, I think most of us think that, but they think sort of what Saban said. There's a break when he breaks down. That's when he gives up a play, and he's just a young guy. Last year was, again, blocking Iowa guys. Was blocking me and you off the edge. So, I mean, it's a different level. James Pierce was not in Iowa. You know what I mean? That's those type of
Harold
guys.
Perkins coming up.
Yeah, those guys weren't in, Iowa football because they'd set every record known to man. But no offense to Iowa football, I'm kidding. But yeah, just a different level. But he does have the breakdowns that you expect, and it's probably a lot of thinking for him every play. So I still think he does some things right. I know he does some things right. I just think he's got to be more consistent. But that's kind of what it's about. I mean, true freshmen make true freshman mistakes. I don't know of any that don't, no matter how good they are.
They do. And we talked about this before too. He hasn't had the luxury of playing inside first and then
Right.
going outside to
Absolutely.
tackle.
His
I mean,
experience was,
Evan
hey,
Neal, Alex Leatherwood, Jedrick Wills even played some guard early on before going outside. And we'll talk more about it as we get into the mailbag here in
did
just a little
Cam
bit.
Robinson start as a true freshman? Am I
He did.
misremembering? Okay, that's what
He
I was.
did.
That's the
I think
only
it
one I
was.
could think of.
I
Him
think it
and
was Cam and Austin Shepard in
Austin did.
2014. No, that
Oh,
was the tackles in
oh,
14.
okay. Yeah,
Those were
I
your
thought
two
Cam did.
offensive
I couldn't
tackles.
remember any others, but you're right. They've all moved around, and
Jonah
um,
started, but I think he was the right tackle and Cam was the left tackle
yeah,
when Jonah Williams was a true freshman. So,
yeah. I think the offensive line's just been they've spent the season figuring out what their best unit is, and
and
they
I
haven't.
think it's kind of like what we talked about. In some ways, you're hoping that the development takes place over the course of a season. And if it doesn't, to the extent that you're hoping or expecting or projecting it will, and you're playing two guys in game 8.
I know
And
this: after these next 2 games, Caden Proctor will not be a freshman.
no,
He's
well, and
officially he's a sophomore after these 2.
here's the thing too, though. It's not like Alabama doesn't have Dallas Turner and Chris Braswell that these guys are going against in practice. And I
Yeah.
understand it's still a different deal because you can get used to what you see from guys even as talented and as
Yep.
explosive. You kind of get to know their hand placement. Maybe they tip their stuff in those one-on-ones. When you go into these games against guys you haven't gone against, you don't have as much of a book. There's a lot of scouting that goes into it, but it's still different, right?
Oh, yeah.
When you actually
Yeah.
see it.
Yeah. And it's not always the defensive end he's got to pick up, I mean, they'll bring backers off that, they bring bandits on that outside. I mean, they have a lot of guys coming. So that goes into it. I mean, you see that. And then, the thing about it is in the NFL, I saw Trent Williams get a hold and get beat twice yesterday, I think it was, against the Browns. And he's probably the best offensive tackle in football. Now, granted, he's going against Myles Garrett, who's an absolute monster at defensive end. But my point is offensive tackles get beat at every level. There's no stonewalling, for 60 minutes.
No, especially if you're in 5-man protection more than just a little bit, which means you're 5-on-4, 5-on-5. If they bring 6, then you're counting on your quarterback helping your
I think
protection
he's
by
shown some
getting to his
maturity
hide.
because I've yet to see him hang his head or
No,
get
the
mad.
body language hadn't been bad.
Yeah. I can see him like, dang it, I got to do that, which is what you want to see. But he's not scared. He's in there. He's fighting. So
He's
I
gonna,
just,
like you said earlier, I feel the same way. He's gonna be fine. He
he just
just
needs to be
needs
fine
sort of
quicker.
a combination of things moving throughout the back end of this season, and perhaps even more importantly, this next off season that
Yeah,
he's going to have with strength and conditioning and some areas where he can do some things physically,
sure.
maybe
Yeah.
that he hadn't had the time to do to this point. So, hey Tim, let's get into this. Let's get into this roundtable mailbag. We always appreciate the folks there with us on the roundtable contributing to the mailbag on the program here. We'll start with Tide and Sip, which he keeps it on that left tackle situation. We heard Nick, I think Tide and Sip asked this before Nick talked about it at his Monday news conference. Why do you think Latham never moved to left tackle? Also, do you think Booker could fare better at tackle with Proctor at guard? Just looking for answers on the O line. Nick talked about this, Tim, and it was essentially, yeah, we could have moved Latham over to left tackle, but then you still need a right tackle. And
Yeah.
this isn't 1982, where if you just had a left tackle, you would be fine because you would give so
Yeah,
much
that's
help to
right.
your right tackle. Today's game, you ask just as much of your right tackle as you do your left tackle a lot of times,
Yeah.
especially in pass protection.
Yeah. There's no Robin Peter to pay Paul when you get to the SEC. You know what I mean? It's not like you get a Harold Perkins. He can just flip over to the other side too. You know what I mean? So you got to
Yeah.
stick your best guys there. And you also got to plan for the future. I mean, this is a team that's got a lot of young talent, especially on offense. I mean, you want to be developing these guys for the next year and the next year as well, to have that guy locked in. And if that's where he's most comfortable, I mean, some guys, I had a former offensive line coach trying to explain to me a lot of guys just are dependent on if they're left or right handed. Like some
Yep.
guys can't do something because they're, the same thing with catching a football, from a left handed, right handed quarterback. You wouldn't think that's a major adjustment, but I guess it is with the punch in and some of the stuff they do. But his questions are all good questions. I mean, I think at the end of the day, you have to trust Tommy Reese and Wolf and Saban to know who their best left guard is. But some of the stuff he said, I've thought about as well.
Yeah, I don't think they're surprised by the struggles at left tackle, but I do think they, in all likelihood, figured they would be further along at
Yeah,
left tackle at this point. And so, and Tide and Sip, he asked a good question here about Booker and moving him to Tide. At this point, you just don't want to start messing with other pieces. You could
yeah.
you could further weaken this offensive line if you start changing the chairs around on
Bama's
the deck there.
Bama's basically they are what they are at this stage. They can improve, but I wouldn't expect a whole lot of. I mean, you don't want to be switching, playing musical chairs with your offensive line at this point. I mean, you got to beat Tennessee, you got to beat Kentucky, you got to beat LSU, no matter what. So, I mean, maybe something could change if they had a loss or, if they got out at SEC race at the end of the year. But I think we're pretty much seeing, they are what they are. Same thing I said with Milrow. I don't know if you like him. I don't know if you think he's the best for Bama, but he is your quarterback. I think we're going to see that the rest of the year. And I think Proctor is the left tackle. And um, just got to hope they get better and execute. And you got a lot of coaches trying to help them. So I think that's certainly possible.
Absolutely. Cham Bama, our pal here on the round
Jam.
table. He says, let's talk about Freddie Roach, people. Yeah, he wants some
Yeah.
recognition. He wants some appreciation for the job done by defensive line
He's done a
coach
good
Freddie Roach.
job. I mean, it's, you hear that. There's always one coach at Alabama that some of the fans don't like. They won't know, you can't find them now, but you and I both remember Carl Scott, fire Carl Scott, that first year. He couldn't recruit, couldn't get anybody. And we were saying, like, hey, it takes a minute to get to know people. You get to a new school, you're in a new area, and you got to get to know the coaches and build those relationships. I mean, there's a lot of people on the fire Carl Scott train. I think a lot were on the fire Freddie train, the recruiting. Last year it started with Peter Woods, losing Peter Woods, who, hey, I was as surprised as anybody Peter Woods went to Clemson, but nothing really surprises me in recruiting anymore with the NIL and the portal and all the options available to players. But I don't think you can deny the defensive line's done a really good job. They get pressure. I felt much better than last year. They get pressure. Their interior run defense is a lot better, and you're seeing guys develop. I mean, Justin coming back was huge, obviously, but having Tim Keenan step up has been equally as big.
Bama also wants to know most exciting moment of this series: the Roman Harper tackle and forced fumble back in 2005, Rocky block with the big man Terrence Cody in 2009, or question mark, what is it for you, Tim, when it comes to Alabama, Tennessee, and previous meetings that stands out among those matchups?
I think what sums up Alabama the best in this series was Roman Harper. I mean, that was especially then, it was all defense. And, Roman Harper's a 3-star kid from Prattville, went on to my Saints and played a long career, had a good career in the NFL. So that's the one. I mean, the Rocky Top was 2 blocks. I think whether they blocked two at the end of that game, didn't they, to win it? So that to me was more frustrating because I thought Alabama was a much better team than Tennessee that year. But so Roman would be my pick.
Yeah, Rocky block. I had gone from the press box at Bryant Denny down to the media
No.
room and
Hey.
just had kind of resigned myself to the likelihood that Alabama was going to lose that game.
Yeah,
I'd
sure.
moved on. I was just like ready to cover the post game and take that angle with it.
I never knew this. That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's just, well, that's what you do. Like, that's how
Oh,
it's
yeah, I
set up.
know. Yeah,
They,
Charlie Potter will text me. He's already
4
headed
to 8
down.
minutes left, you'd go from the press box. You could go down to the field. I didn't even go down to the field. A lot of the reporters go to the field so they can watch the end or be down on the field to see the aftermath. I didn't go down the field.
Wasn't a
I
very
went
long
straight
field
to the
goal.
media room, got a seat where Nick Saban was going to be speaking and was ready to hear the talk
And
after a
Travis is
loss.
there like, Coach, how do y'all come back from a loss like this?
Yeah, I had it ready. I had it chambered, no doubt. And then Alabama wins the game. For
That's the
me,
best.
it's probably Phillip Doyle in Knoxville
Oh,
in
man.
1990 with the 47-yard field goal,
That's
because
a doozy.
that's Gene Stallings' first team. They had really struggled through the first half of the season, as we know. I think 3 straight losses to start his tenure. And then that was a Tennessee team that was top 3, top 5 in the country. And then to win a defensive battle like that and Doyle to win it
At
with the
that length,
47-yarder. Yeah.
47-yarder in college is not. In the
Doyle could
NFL,
kick
it's
it,
a
man.
chippy. Yeah, in the
You talk
NFL,
about former Alabama kickers that I was a little bit surprised weren't NFL kickers. Phillip would probably
yeah.
be on that list. Really, really good. Good baseball player, too, back in the day. Jam Bama wants to know what will be the game within the game this Saturday, Tim. What maybe undervalued aspect of
I think
this
you touched
matchup
on it with
you'll be?
their pace and Alabama having to match their personnel. I think you
Mhm.
nailed it perfectly. I mean, I think that's it. I mean, Alabama's got to figure out what they're doing. Tennessee's got to figure out how to attack it. That's about as chess-like as it gets.
I'll go with another one. I'll go red zone touchdown efficiency for both
Hmm.
these teams because they're both not exactly elite in that area. I think that would surprise you maybe more with Tennessee because Tennessee's running for 230 a game, and typically strong running teams have high conversion rates for touchdowns in the red zone. That hadn't been the case. I think it could come down to whichever team kicks the most field goals loses this game.
How's Tennessee's kicker? Do you know?
He's good.
He's good.
He's a transfer from Indiana. He missed from distance last week against Texas A&M. I think it was around 50 yards he missed from.
Oh,
But
that's
otherwise, he's been pretty solid. So I think it's a matchup you still like if you're Alabama, especially when you include Burnip in that.
sure.
But Tennessee special teams were big, were
Yeah,
huge for.
they had a return, right?
Yes,
Yeah, I
yes,
think
were
that's the one thing
huge
I'd
for them
like to
last week.
see. Alabama, and I'm not blaming Kool-Aid, but I think you've got to figure out a way to get under the ball, at least fair catch it. Because I mean, I don't know if somebody went back and added up the yards, those balls, and he did in the fourth quarter, which was huge. But those balls hitting the ground cost him probably 50, 60 yards, maybe. That
Yeah,
football rolls, baby. That thing, when it hits the ground right, that thing, it kicks on down the field.
and some of these college punters, man, they make it really, really hard because
Oh, that guy was moving around a good bit. He was running to his right, kicking to his left.
they kick it outside the numbers. They don't
Yeah.
really sometimes have a plan.
Yeah.
It's hard to prepare for some of these
Yeah.
punters you see
I
in
mean, you got to
college.
know no matter what, no matter who the punter is, he's kicking away from Kool-Aid, right?
Yeah.
You're just
You
not
know,
going to
some
have nobody's kicking the ball to that guy. He's electric. I mean, terrific athlete, fast. I was hoping to see him score one, because I've never seen anybody been so close to
yeah.
returning them than like last year. I mean, he had 5 or
Mhm.
6 where he was just barely tripped on what could have been a score. So I'm still hoping to see some electricity there. This week would be a good week for it.
It would. We've seen Saban in the past put two guys back there, twin
That's
safeties, to kind of
mhm.
prevent
Yeah,
some of
you got
that
to go to
lost
one of
field
them.
position with the ball bouncing around. Maybe we'll see that at some point in the not too distant future. Saban rules '07 here on the Roundtable Mailbag. He asked, will Bryant Denny actually be a hostile environment this weekend and for LSU? Can the crowd make a difference like Georgia did when the Vols visited Athens last year? UT struggled with the noise at Florida earlier this season, too. We kind of touched on that. You did a little bit earlier and how that could come into play for the Vols this week.
I think Alabama does a great job at the stadium. It's nothing like on the round table, you'll see, man, it's dead. And then 5 people at the game are posting like, dude, I can barely hear in here. So I think from sitting at home, it might feel a little different. So my guys, friends, obviously you have them too, they kind of tell me when it's up and down. They'll tell me when it's down and when it's up, but I've never heard it and say it's quiet for a big game. I mean, I know the last time what was the last game there? Was that Trayvon Diggs's return? Was that the last one, or am I missing one that was in Tuscaloosa? I
Might
think I
be
missed. I think I missed one because that was Pruitt coaching.
a defensive score or non
No, that the
offensive.
last time Tennessee was in Tuscaloosa. What was that? Which game was that?
No, that was Heupel 2 years ago. That was actually a good game because
Okay.
Tennessee came out and hit some big plays, and that thing went well into the second half. That was a night game 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think it feel like most of the Alabama games, Tennessee games lately have been night games, right?
There's been a
No
pretty
Diggs.
good mix. Last year was CBS afternoon. Year before was night. Getting
The,
CBS in the afternoon again this time. Been a little bit of a
at
mix.
least the last 2 in Tuscaloosa were night games because Diggs' return was a night game.
hmm That was with
Still one of the
Jeremy.
crazy. That's a crazy moment in that series when the
That was.
quarterback just took it over top.
Yeah, Jeremy wasn't happy about that.
Pruitt was
That
not
was,
happy, and of all the people to pick that bad boy up,
yeah.
Mr. Diggs, world class
Guys,
speed.
guys on that Alabama defense knew what to do with it. Um, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's going to be electric. There's
Yeah,
no doubt about it. Tennessee's going to travel well because the season is still very much uh, sustainable for the
it's not a long
Vols. Everything's
drive.
still in front of Tennessee as far as what it can accomplish. So it's not like some previous Tennessee trips where the Vols came in and the season was already pretty much over. It should
Yeah,
be hyped
it's
for
going to come. They can
many
still
reasons.
control their own destiny very much.
Exactly.
Same for Florida.
Exactly. And get
Yeah,
Georgia at home next month. Tennessee does. And maybe without Brock Bowers, Georgia going to make
that
that
kid's
trip.
good. Boy, he's
Yeah, he
good, isn't
is.
he?
Tide Steel as we wrap up the roundtable mailbag here. The offensive troubles seem to be multifaceted. So, what on God's green earth would you do to fix this mess? I would say get off to better starts would help. I don't know how you go about fixing that, but it seems like throughout this season, it's taken the offense a little while to get going. That was the case again against Arkansas. But man, once it does get going, it has the ultimate bailout in the way of explosive plays. You can cover, you can conceal a lot when you're able to hit for those plays like Alabama has been able to do it. But again, we went back to we talk about sustainability, and for how long can you really sort of lean on that approach?
Yeah, I agree. I think Alabama wants to look more consistently. I mean, we know they can throw the ball deep. They need to establish the run, and I just mean 4 yards on a carry. 4 yards on a carry, a 2nd and 6, kind of go from there. I still want to see more tight end. I want to see more CJ Dupre. We've seen Amari. We know he's good. It's good as what turning into what we expected. And still some Robbie Oots. I think there's some plays there. I will say I don't think you got the Tennessee LSU game plan versus Arkansas. I don't think Alabama took them not serious, but I think they did. They probably have an extra trick or two when you're going to play Tennessee and when you're going to play LSU. So there's some things you could see. You can see Milroe running a little bit more. He's obviously protecting himself a little bit, probably told to do that or just felt it's the best thing to do. I just think it's consistency. Hit the short, make the easy plays like the pass to Jacory. That pass to Jacory could have been a little bit better, but it's also a catchable pass either way. So get that thing up a little bit. It's kind of similar to the pass he missed with Benson, throwing it out there to his left. If he can't make the throw, don't have it out there.
Yeah,
Just find their strengths and go to it.
I thought the Brooks drop last week was actually a positive because it showed that Jalen from time to time can maintain that connectivity with his check down or his secondary options. So even when he
Sure.
steps up in the
Well,
pocket,
yeah.
he understands he's got Brooks out there and he actually makes the
I
throw.
just saw what a
So
big play that was probably going to be. I
could have
mean, there
been.
was, you know what I mean? There's nobody
Sure.
near him. Still got to catch it. It wasn't a perfect throw, though.
As far as Tennessee this week, I just want to see get a lot of guys involved early. Do some different things. Don't be just centric upon the inside zone or, it was good to see some counter action last week with Jalen Roberts and those
Yeah,
linemen pulling and doing some good stuff,
it was nice.
especially early. Yeah, especially early in the second half. You talk about that Florida game, watching it back. I thought Billy Napier and the offensive staff did a nice job. They mixed it up. They incorporated some jet sweeps and stretched the field sideline to sideline. Still tried to work inside. So they made Tennessee defensively defend more of the field, which is what Tennessee, ironically enough, wants to do
Yeah.
to you offensively.
Hey, nobody wants to defend sideline to sideline, right? Plus, you have deep, you got but run the ball. That's a big rectangle to defend. So I agree. You want to make them just as uncomfortable as they're going to make you. And I think Alabama can do it with the crowd. I think it's a huge advantage. I think special teams are nice. And I do expect Alabama to hit some big plays in this game.
There you go. That is the round table mailbag. And with that, we'll let Tim get back to his NBA season preparation. Of course, Tim is
Next
our
Tuesday.
NBA correspondent here
Next
on T
Tuesday.
Watts and
Hey,
TR.
we got
So
Major League Baseball going on. I know the
we
Braves fans.
do.
Rest in peace, the Braves fans. But
In this part of the country, there's still baseball going on.
hey, there's all think about baseball. You almost always have something to root for, like the Rangers.
Yeah.
Like they're one of the best stories in baseball. I mean, they're up 2-0 in the Astros.
Hammering the cheaters so far. They're just hammering
Yeah,
those cheaters.
dude. That thing is like there's so much talent on that Astros team, and just to be there's guys that came after it that are just labeled with it. I mean, if I'm a free agent, I'm wondering if I'm going there. You know what I mean? I don't want to
Yeah.
be kept out of the Hall of Fame because I played for the Astros 5 years after they banged a
I
gong.
played for the 1908 or 1918,
You,
which one it was. One of
you know what I
those.
saw
The
with
White
baseball?
Sox,
The baseball today, I saw Trevor May retired for the A's. I saw this on ESPN this morning, and he is like laying into the A's owner. He's like, sell the team. He called him a dork, which is an old school me and you.
That's
Hey,
a
that don't mean
stuff you
nothing
in
to
your
young
locker.
bucks.
That's a
Hey, that don't
stuff
mean
get stuffed in your locker insult from
yeah, that
83,
don't mean nothing to young people.
Dork.
That was fighting words back in middle school. Dork was hold up a second now. You call me
Yeah.
a lot of things, but
Yeah, if you were a dork, you definitely weren't fresh.
well, he was talking to him. I just thought it was funny. He was talking about, mom and dad were rich. You got their money. I guess his parents invented the Gap. So they're
That's
like, I just never seen the major league or any professional player just go
had to
score
sell a lot of
shirt.
rugbies. Had to sell a lot of rugby shirts back in the day
Yeah, they bought the
to
A's.
buy a baseball team. Hey, and we also have the T Watts and TR Bowl on Thursday night. You ready
Oh,
for you ready to take that paddling? Your Saints ready to take that thumping from my Jags or what?
Derek Carr.
You
Derek
know
Carr.
what, man? D'Amico's trying to wreck both of our teams. Did you
Dude,
notice that?
yes, that was
D'Amico and the Texans now have wins. Of their 3 wins, one is against my Jags and one is against your Saints.
they did a really good job.
D'Amico needs to chill.
You saw Christian, you saw Henry, you saw Will out there.
Will, yeah.
You saw how defensive minded they are. You see, I love D'Amico and he's assistants. I had so many people talking about it, but his energy on the sideline, young guy, haven't seen him playing at Bama. You're not particularly surprised, but yeah. Is Trevor will be fine, right?
Trevor, yeah, they're not talking much about him after the
Well,
injury.
if he needs an organ or a part, Rusty Manziel from our Georgia site will give him his knee. Rusty loves him some Trevor. He
Yeah,
will give him a knee.
that's Rusty's guy.
Rusty loves him some Trevor.
We'll have CJ Beathard ready to rock, the
You
gunslinger.
go to New Orleans, y'all get on
Yeah.
bourbon, you drink a little bit.
Calvin Ridley coming to town.
I'm just saying, cover your drink. When
Yeah,
y'all are in
it's
town.
interesting for the Jags because it'll be the Jags' third game out of the United States in their last 4 because they played 2 in London and now they're playing in New Orleans, which is obviously its own country altogether down there.
Hey, it's a
I love
different.
it, and I love
It's.
it about I
I
love
know
that
you
about
do.
NOLA.
It's a
Love
different
NOLA like
place.
you
We
do.
were there last year for the Alabama Kansas State game. Haven't won as much since the world shut down and came back, but yeah, it's a different element. I mean, you see some things there you don't necessarily see in other places.
Well, we hope you've seen some things you haven't seen in other places with us right here on
Hey,
the latest edition of T Watts and TR. Tim, anything else before we get out of here?
no, but you guys that aren't subscribers, give us a chance. You really will. I mean, we have Andrew Bone, Joseph Hastings, who does a terrific job on recruiting with us. We have Charlie Potter, Clint Lamb, Jimmy Stein, message board monster. Some of you guys might be familiar if you're on other message boards. Me and Travis bringing in the rear, but you have price. We're worth half price.
Come on.
We're
At
worth
least.
we're worth half price for a year. I'm going to brag on myself and say I'm worth half the price. So
Okay. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think we
but
are.
if you were worth half the price, they'd be paying full. So I'm just saying, pick it up, TR. Come on now.
Oh man,
Hey,
I'm not
Saints,
good at math,
Jags
so I have
hate
no
week has
idea
started.
what you just referred to. But yeah, looking forward to
Hey,
Thursday
week
night.
has started. Saints and Jags. Let's
That's
go.
right. Let's get it. Let's get it. And you should get it with us right there at BamaOnline.com. For Tim Watts, Travis Reier, thanking you for joining us here on the YouTube and podcast homes for BamaOnline.com. Be sure to take care of that 50% off the annual subscription for new subscribers right now at BOL. Until next time, so long, everybody.